everybody on this Monday morning, and great to see so many people interested in our session here today. So I'm just going to go back, and we have a really good agenda lined up for everyone this morning. So here is our agenda, and I'll talk through that in a minute. But I just want to start with really around the concept of MÓR began in 2011 and has been perfected through a number of iterations to really now what is known as it's a mature framework. And the framework really, it's a mentor-led business management framework, and it applies powerful business enablers and supports implementation strategies within your organization. And that's what we're here to talk about this morning. And it's really about not just, I suppose, the measurement of where you are on your operational excellence journey, but also more about as well empowering your people and how your organization can transform to empower the people to achieve their full potential and maximize really, I suppose, your bottom line. So today we'll hear from Adrian MacDonald, who will provide a strategic input from the IBEC Advanced Manufacturing Working Group for Medtech and Engineering. And really, Adrian can talk to us about how the programme has evolved. Through the MÓR Enterprise Excellence is like other Irish Medtech Skillnet programmes, it's heavily influenced by industry and enterprise excellence. What would I say, really people that are leaders in the industry. And we have one of them here today who is Cathal O'Reilly. But this framework has also been developed with work from, to name but a few, I suppose, Mike Farrell from West Pharma, Brendan Shepherd from Smart Factories, Colm Shields from Boston Scientific. And that really is just to name but a few of the really key people that are working in the Advanced Manufacturing Working Group. And finally, of the speakers here today, we have Liam Sheedy, the Vice Chairman of Teneo Ireland, who will talk to us about the integration of the MÓR Enterprise Excellence Framework into your organisation, where Teneo and Liam's team really will guide the business transformation for advisors from. It's really, you'll hear from Liam today about the work that they have been doing, where Teneo, they're global and they're working with companies, and Liam has a number of exemplars that he'll talk to us here today on. So I'm going to then just outline what our agenda for today is. I've just talked through it, and we will then at the end of the day show you how you can link in and go on to the next steps around the enterprise excellence journey that you can go on through the MÓR framework. So I'm going to introduce this with a video here this morning, and the sound is working from what I'm aware of, so I'm going to just play this.
The old ways of working don't really apply anymore. We need to develop better ways of thinking.
IBEC's Medtech and Engineering Advanced Manufacturing Working Group, in tandem with the Irish Medtech Skillnet, have recognised the need to move with the times and to advance towards digital transformation. They've developed a programme that is more people-centric, it's cloud-based and high performance.
It's quite comprehensive. It's made up of a number of different strategies, but they're all designed to come together into one overarching framework to help businesses and organisations perform better into the future.
The whole MÓR Enterprise Framework would be that when you're going down the road of digitisation, and that's involving Skillnet elements as well, it's very important in the initial stage to lean out the process and to make sure that we're not digitising waste.
It's really geared around a hub and a spoke model. The hub is very much centred on the basic construct of what drives high performance systems. Each of the spokes they're designed around the emerging strategies and trends that are driving organisations into the future, such as sustainability, talent development, commercial excellence, and digitalisation.
As facilitator for the MÓR Enterprise Excellence Programme, my role will be to work with each of the companies for the people that they send with us to ensure that they're equipped to roll out the programme. So ultimately we'll be working with the champions to ensure that the system that we've developed as in the MÓR Enterprise Excellence Programme is rolled out effectively and efficiently and implemented across the site.
What's really different about this approach It no longer talks about tools or solutions. It instead gets people to start thinking about their own unique problems and how to approach them differently.
I really feel that MÓR can give them that ultimate advantage, and I think it's a really great opportunity for companies to take a look and see exactly how they can continue to grow and flourish in this current environment.
What's really different about this is embracing the true potential that exists in every single person that is part of your organisation. Be empowered around the processes that they own, to get everybody excelling towards performance, to involve everyone every day in solving problems and continuously improving performance, and to really make that part of your own DNA, something that you can be proud of, to build a system here that is going to stand the test of time, that is going to drive performance well into the future. That's the potential.
The MÓR Enterprise Excellence Framework has been developed in collaboration with the Advanced Manufacturing Working Group in IBEC and the Irish Medtech Skillnet. The Irish Medtech Skillnet have developed a training programme to ensure that companies who have already gotten involved now have a proven model to sustain their growth and to deliver enterprise excellence across their organisation. Companies that get involved will see those benefits as the companies that are already involved are achieving. So for companies, whether it be an SME, a high potential startup, a large organisation or a multinational, what's at the centre of your organisation is your people. And to develop those people, we have a programme that can help you achieve those results. Contact the irishmedtechskillnet.ie. So now I'm going to move on and introduce you to Adrian MacDonald, Senior Executive with the Irish Medtech Association, who's going to talk to us about the challenges facing manufacturers in Ireland and how we've come to this point here today. So Adrian, I'm going to hand over to yourself.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Just so you know, I am Senior Executive with the Irish Medtech Association. I lead out the Engineering Advanced Manufacturing Working Group in IBEC, and I've worked very closely with all the guys in relation to the model and the Skillnet, etc. So just in terms of, actually just in the video there, Carl very much touched on it, and the old ways of working aren't going to be, relevant anymore. Just to put it into context before I go into this slide, the EU industrial strategy aims to ensure European industry can lead the way as it embarks towards climate neutrality and digital leadership to make EU industry more competitive globally. And I think, lots of you have already seen that with the challenges that have come our way in terms of COVID-19, energy costs rising, supply chain breakdowns, inflation, all of those types of things have really impacted industry and the manufacturing industry at large across the globe. But interestingly enough, Ireland's manufacturing during the COVID-19 was really a star performer, and it grew. And the Ireland's level of employment in high technology manufacturing as a share of total employment is now the highest in the EU, with 29% of manufacturing in high-end technology sectors. So we really are kind of punching above our weight, and that term is used a lot, but it just goes to show how well our ecosystem is. And just come onto this next slide, manufacturing in Ireland is highly advanced sector and across diverse industries, including medtech, biopharma, electronics, food production, and it's all supported by that robust and well established ecosystem, and well funded indeed. So and these things that are underpinning it are we have a very well track record. Years our record for product development and resilient supply chains and connections, etc. And we've a favourable environment politically, and I think that's it very much shows if you compare us to other jurisdictions how closely we can be linked to our policymakers, etc. And then our overall connected ecosystem and that collaboration that we have with academia and industry supporting convergence. And you'll have seen, if any of you saw on LinkedIn over the last week or two, we held a very large event in the convention centre on MedTech, and that convergence was very much shown in our Connected Health new report, if anyone's interested in that. And certainly the Skillnet supported that no end as well. So coming on, we also have a strong leadership and a cohesive industry leadership which prioritises talent and collaboration and fosters industry growth, and a skilled and educated workforce. And Ireland's skilled agile workforce has been a pivotal component of our economic development, both supporting the growth of our domestic businesses and attracting multinational investment. And then finally, we have an expansive support for upskilling, and that's very much seen in our Skillnet. And I think the Skillnet model is unique across Europe. It's and a lot of our certainly our national trade associations within Medtech Europe and some of our other trade associations like Orglim are envious of that model that we have. So we're very fortunate to have that. You might move on to the next. So in terms of us ourselves in the Irish Medtech Association, so Anne, I think if you can move on to the next slide there, we have 4 key components of our strategy, and it's innovation with impact. It's the previous slide, Anne. Talent to thrive and excellence through collaboration and competitiveness of our ecosystem. And that very much, you can see the linkages there between our overall ecosystem and our strategic priorities in the Irish Medtech Association based on that. I'm going to move on then to the actual MÓR model and what used to be, I suppose, the MÓR model and how we've evolved. And as I said, the sector needs to respond to the current challenges through business model innovation and capital innovation and technology and investment. And this is why we kind of moved. We looked at how we're working now, and we moved towards, I suppose, changing and transforming the MÓR model into a enterprise excellence framework, and moving away from kind of systems based to a high performance base. So you'll remember we had a benchmark model, we had a lean leadership program, and we had a mentoring program. And from that, the old model, its purpose really was to advance OpEx maturity and best in class manufacturing across Ireland's medtech ecosystem in line with our national manufacturing strategy. And it was very much kind of systems, I suppose, an assessment tool, and based on that type of matrix. So it targeted the groups supporting organizations who are in the early phase of their OpEx journey. And the objectives there were to have a national assessment system. So we took like Shingo, Toyota models, and kind of looked at best in class there, incorporated in to have our own framework or model. And then that was a formal way of allowing us to set up a partnership or mentoring program and then improve OpEx leadership. But the considerations that we had then were to increase collaboration across medtech companies, advance the understanding of lean principles and tools, and have that alignment with Shingo for an international recognition. And many companies indeed used the model for moving along towards their Shingo journey. But the new framework that we have now, MÓR Transformation Framework, is a hub and spoke framework on enterprise excellence. And really it's about advanced leadership thinking and organizations' capability in the ongoing pursuit of enterprise excellence. So it's about, as Anne already alluded to, having that people-centric piece and having that very much at the center of everything, steering all organizations, regardless of their maturity, to supplement existing house frameworks as well. It can it can do that, but it really is about steering organizations, regardless of their maturity, along their maturity journey. And the spoke that we have very much have elements that are in keeping with what the challenges that companies currently have. So supply chain, digitalization, talent, etc. And that's really where we wanted to get to now. So it's no longer relevant, the MÓR model as such. We're moving towards a new framework, enterprise excellence, and it's having that transformation piece at the center, and all the other spokes around that shift the mindset and the thinking and emphasis on organizational learning as more relevant and adaptable. So I'll pass you over. I don't think there's any more slides there, Anne, is there?
No, there isn't, Adrian. Thank you very
pass
much.
You over
Yeah.
to Cathal now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. So I'm going to ask Cathal to come on and speak to us really about the white paper that he has written around this, and also it's at the basis of all the work that we've done here around the importance of strategic implementation and cultural transformation. So Cathal is the Senior Industry Advisor to the MÓR Enterprise Excellence Group and a VP with Enterprise Excellence in Teleflex. Cathal, can I hand over to yourself?
You can. Thanks, Anne. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well, and delighted you could join today's webinar. So building on what has already been said, I guess, if you look back to where we were 10, 15 years ago with the MÓR benchmark model, it was very much built on taking best practices that were out there in the industry and collating them all into one condensed model, and using that as the framework going forward. The problem with benchmarking is it's limited to really helping you close the gap to where the competition currently are today. By the time we actually close that gap, the competition have well moved ahead. And the second thing is the world is much different to where we are today versus 10 years ago. The level of disruption and change we know is constant, but the one thing is for certain now, it's accelerating at a rate that we've never seen before. Hence, when you see the hub and spoke model, there's strategies there on the spokes, such as digitalization, as we're moving now into the whole space of AI as well. We've got the climate change upon us that we have to tackle through sustainable practices. We have to keep upskilling and developing the talent within our organization based on the new skills that they require. And from a commercialization perspective as well, supply chains have to get closer to the customers and looking at how we can redefine how we go to market, how we embrace mobile health, things like that. But at the very center is how do we keep pace with the pace of change externally? And what we have here is, if organizations are not able to respond quickly and adaptively, that gray zone that you see in this graph here, that's just going to continue to get wider and wider. The white paper that Anne referred to, a bit of the research that I did here as well, is that back in late 1950s, there was the average age of a company was about 70 years. Today, that's only 15 years, and it's forecasted to get shorter and shorter and shorter as well. So we're going to see a lot more change going forward, and it's so important here for organizations to become a lot more adaptable. Okay, click on to the next one. We're all familiar with this saying, I guess, and I just think it's appropriate for the world that we live in now. This is all about adaptability. Lean was a big buzzword for the last 10 or 15 years as organizations try to become much more efficient and productive. That's still relevant today because of forces like inflation, but it's not the only lever we have to go after. What's really important here is our ability to be relevant, to be adaptable, and to be responsive to change. And to do that, we need to embrace more people in the organization than just the folk that we are today. So the one thing that is pretty much consistent with where we were 10, 15, 20 years ago is that the management practices and the prevailing management systems haven't really changed. The management thinking, processes, tools, techniques, yeah, we've embraced a lot of those with best practices, but we have to really get at the heart of actually changing how we work going forward. So the the central theme to this, the hub, let's call it, it's based on the premise that leadership and management need to be elevated in today's world. If you look at the little graphic on the left-hand side there, there's two colors that we're using. The green arrow, most people are familiar hopefully with Deming's PDCA, cycle of learning and improvement. But that's really a management responsibility where you're trying to put management systems in place that connect all those elements that we have here in terms of people are connected with a clear purpose, process, performance and practice. There's also another element here which is outside of that, which is the role of leadership. We talk a lot about employee engagement, but employee engagement is only one piece of the puzzle here. It's pointless nearly engaging people around a clear and compelling purpose if we're not also empowering them to do something with it, in terms of taking ownership for their processes, managing and improving their processes on a regular basis, and also that they give them the tools as well and the visibility of letting them know whether they're on the right track or not, and if they're not, that they can be taking corrective action or taking any sort of action to make sure that we're always trying to attain our goals and drive higher performance every single day. And that's for everyone, not just frontline workers or management, it's everyone in your organization. So it's really about systems and culture. And this slide here is just talking about the new role of and the new definition that we want to place around management and leadership. Traditionally, these roles would have been perceived as two different things. Management doing, let's say, the right things, or sorry, management doing things right and leadership doing the right things. And too often we associate them as well with positional authority. In the new world, it's recognizing that everybody can become a manager and everybody can become a leader depending on how we actually look at the world. If we look at even frontline workers, they're not just here as a set of hands to do the work. They also have a brain, a heart, the whole lot, like every one of us, they're no different. How can we empower them to start managing their own work, taking ownership of their own processes, not just the management of them, but also the improvement. And also from a leadership perspective, if we just see folks senior in the organization as being leaders, we're more or less defaulting to say that any change brought within the organization is coming top down. Everybody should be a leader in their own right. It's really about connecting with people, empowering them, getting them involved in the journey, and giving them a sense of purpose to everything that they do, so that we, all of our organizations can become a much more powerful force if we got everybody moving in the right direction and fully empowered to do so. There's three types of, let's say, system configurations that you would typically see present, but there are three different types. I'll give an example of each one here, okay? And the ethos of thinking behind this is that if you look at the area of high performance, we typically associate high performance outside of our industry, and we look at areas like sport, and Liam will be speaking later on as well, and he's very familiar with this space. But type 1 configuration, which is over on the left-hand side, that's where you typically see individuals or teams that have to go out occasionally and perform. But when they do so, they have to do it at the very highest of standards. So you're talking here about like elite special forces, elite rescue teams, professional sports players and athletes and musicians, etc. They're not performing every single day, but when they do, they can't afford to fail. So they spend an incredible amount of time practicing over in the learning zone, right? If you contrast that to a type 2 systems configuration in the middle, this is where folks like us, we have to turn up every day to work and perform, as do our people. We spend an incredible amount of time in the performance zone. As such, the challenge that we're all faced with is getting time to actually learn and practice, and that nearly becomes as an add-on. It becomes secondary. It doesn't get as much priority. So we're not moving the organization as fast. I mean, that goes back to the change graph that we had as well. Typically, the rate of improvement that we see within organizations is very, very gradual. The opportunity that we have here is to really start looking at our organizations as learning labs, learning organizations where people are enabled to continuously perform every day, but equally we're continuously learning every day. Learning isn't an add-on. it's not another responsibility or a distraction. It's actually a cohort of our job. We're doing it every single day. And if you look at the high-performing organizations actually within industry, you know, again, if you look at, we all know about Toyota, you know, they refer to themselves as a learning organization, and that's how they're set up. It's people are challenged at every level, every day, to continuously think about what they're doing and how they can further improve it. And that's a challenge and opportunity that we have here as well. The system itself can be seen as a high-performance system. I think, as Adrian mentioned, we're not focusing here on tools and techniques. That's where we were in the past. We offered solutions, but we weren't giving people the ability to think. This is really a system that drives everybody to start thinking by framing it out in a different way. So I'll just give you a quick context here, okay? Nan said this as well, at the heart of any organization is our people. They're the differentiating factor between what we do. They're what give life to any system. Without people, the system is lifeless. It's how we actually connect people with how the system works. And it starts off, first of all, with your purpose. If you don't have a purpose, your organization is empty, it's lifeless. Purpose gives meaning to everything that we actually do at both the individual level, the team level, and the organization level. It's different context every time, but the most important thing here is that people feel that a sense of they're contributing to a greater cause. Up until now, we would have been attracting people very much on pay and salary. The new attractor going forward is giving people a sense of they're part of something great. You know, bring them into an organization where they feel that they can contribute and they can contribute to something that is bigger than themselves. That's really the power of purpose. And again, you see that very relevant in high performance organizations. Process then is how you go about enacting on that proper purpose. The series of steps and actions that you have to adopt to get you the results that you're after. Your processes have to be fit for purpose. How do you know that? You have to have ways of measuring and evaluating your performance on a regular basis. We have to start shifting our focus away from lagging indicators, the vital few, to having very meaningful leading indicators at the process level as well, where we can actually take action and make sure we can make the necessary adjustments to stay the course. And then we go over to the right-hand side into the learning zone is what do we do with that feedback? Any closed loop system will have feedback loops. It's what we do to respond to that feedback, which is the practice element of it. And that's how we go about achieving our goals. One final thing I'll say about this is you can look at this not just in this iterative cyclical pattern, which is defined by the circles and the arrows, but also if you look at the vertical planes here, the left-hand side of this model is all about performance, where we're actually executing against our processes. The right-hand side is all about the learning, the improvement through the practices that we're embracing every day. The horizontal planes is we start with our why. The purpose actually drives our strategy and the thinking behind that. The how then is really about how we go executing our work through our processes and improving our processes. And then fundamentally, if we do that, the results will usually take care of themselves. And then this is the same model, same thinking. The only difference here is that we lay it out on its flat, and we can look at this as 5 pillars as well, but the 5 pillars all work coherently as a system. And this is all around how we go about enabling flow. If you look at the true definition of performance is described as being in a state of flow where everything is just happening. That's really where ideality, that's where we would love to get to. It's the holy grail. It's very difficult to get there, obviously, but that's the aspiration. So when we talk about purpose, you know, the role of leadership here is vital in terms of senior leadership here have to spend a lot of the time planning and communicating that purpose down throughout the organization, setting the values, setting the vision, and setting the strategies. Middle management have to go and take those strategies in and cascade them down into priorities and actions at the front line. People then, on the other hand, is how we go about organizing and upskilling ourselves to enable flow. The role of management, the role of our support teams and frontline teams, and we're working here as teams. Process is all about how we go about creating flow. There's 3 different primary types of processes. There's management type of processes that we use to run the business. There are supporting processes that we have to have in place purely to support the frontline processes, and that's where the work gets done, and that's where the value value gets created. Performance then is aligning our metric systems and KPIs to the needs of the business. And we have to look at them. We talk a lot about lagging and leading indicators, but we really have to get to indicators here at the front line that allow us to make changes in real time, but also to get ahead and look forward and preempt anything that we need to change before we execute our work. And finally, practice then is, there's two elements to what we do here. It's maintaining flow and improving flow. Maintaining flow is all about the standard work routines that we have to have throughout the organization. And improving flow is all based around innovation, creative thinking, and problem solving. Underlining all of this as well in the MÓR framework is a set of guiding principles that we can evaluate any organization against to see where we've got gaps. But again, the important point here is you don't close those gaps in isolation. You have to look at it as a system, and a very kind of interconnected, interdependent system. It's like you know, any system or chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So you have to kind of look at the whole holistic picture here. And the thinking behind this, and in accordance with the white paper, we call this it's the CUSP model, or the CUSP framework. The reason we call it CUSP is we're always on the transition of change from a current state to a future change. We're always on the cusp of excellence. Plus, it's very customer focused, but as Anne said earlier on as well, very people-centric. And the opportunity here is all about people. It's putting systems in place and cultures in place where we can get the very best out of our people. And how we do that, again, is going back to connecting with purpose, empowering our own processes, evaluating performance, and practicing every single day.
Thank you, Cathal. So I'm going to take over now and talk about, really, I head up funded projects for Medtech and engineering here in IBEC, and it's about implementing the MÓR Enterprise Excellence to drive talent development. And we've worked in collaboration with the Irish Medtech Association to develop the training program, but also the actual measurement tool. And at the outset, that was the initial purpose, was really to take the model that Adrian would have discussed and digitalize that. But as you can see, it's grown into a lot more than that, based on what both Adrian and Cathal have already said. So today's talk is about the hub, and then the spokes are all currently either in development or about to go into development. So when we talk about what Cathal said about skills and sustainability, all those parts are required to be able to support enterprise excellence. But at the hub of that, we need to get all of the people, the purpose, the process, all of that correct and set up properly first, before we can then go in and implement all of the other, the spokes of this framework. So what I'm going to talk about now is how the Skillnet have supported that, and then hand over to Liam to talk about how we're going to implement training around those activities. So the Irish Medtech Skillnet itself, we're a talent advisor and a catalyst really for skills transformation across all segments of the diverse medtech sector, meeting organizations' needs. So really this is at the heart of our strategy. Our strategy is known as Talent to Thrive, and it really is about supporting businesses build their capabilities, but only about delivering training really that's relevant to industry, and in 90% of the cases has actually been developed by industry itself and has worked in collaboration with us to do that. And today is a clear example of how we've done that, and how a Skillnet sits within the organisation, because there can be a lot of confusion around this. Is so there are 72 Skillnets across Ireland. We, Skillnet Ireland, are the funding body for each one of these Skillnets, and then we work either in relevant sectors or locations across Ireland. So the different Skillnets have different sponsoring organisations, and in the case of the Irish Medtech Skillnet, the sponsoring organisation is IBEC, and then obviously we sit really correctly in with the Irish Medtech Association. So that's how we work together, and then we work across a number of different areas providing training. And this is going back really to what we would have discussed earlier around the MÓR Enterprise Excellence overall framework is around, at the center of it is MÓR Transform, which is where we took the model and then we changed that developed it into a framework based on what Adrian spoke about earlier on. And then we're in the process of developing the spokes around this. Some of them are well along in the area of digital and talent. But the training we will talk about today is really that hub training, which is at the heart of everything we want to do to set that transformation journey going for companies. So how we're doing that, and I'll get into more detail in the next slide, but it's really today we have our introduction webinar. On the 23rd of June, we'll have a MÓR masterclass, which will be delivered in the High Performance Centre in Limerick on the 23rd of June. And you'll learn what the framework can do for you, your organisation specifically. And then there will be more implementation, which really is around in-company facilitator-led training, which will be delivered by Teneo and will also include the part of the actual tool that we've developed as well to support companies implement these changes across their organizations. So when we get down into the detail of that, the masterclass is on the 23rd of June, and then there will be, depending on the organization, depending on where you are on your journey, and also the fact that you may have different sort of aspects of operational excellence already ongoing in your company, you can still implement some or all the parts of the MÓR framework, and that's exactly how we've built it. And then obviously ongoing from that, we would then have all the support that happens through Adrian's working group and through other different forums and working groups that are across IBEC and connecting into the Irish Medtech Skillnet as well. So there is ongoing support for your organisation from both a networking and an information sharing perspective. Just to give you a very quick overview of the MÓR Transform tool itself. So you can see here that it has been developed in association with CAHL and the Advanced Manufacturing Working Group. And it's really about, we've got more digital, more talent, and we're developing the spokes, but it's really about the evaluation tool is already up and running and companies are already using it. And it's based on what CAHL would have talked about earlier on, but also there is definitely the wider side of this where companies can do their evaluation, but then you need to actually be able to implement a strategy around that. And also to be able to keep those goals moving, it's implementing those changes within an organization. And I know Liam is going to talk to us about how they've already done that with companies at sort of, you know, the company level, department level and individual level. And I think that's where the implementation of this software, but then all of the strategy and the framework around it is key to being able to deliver on where you do your assessment. And you can do your assessment at the start and at the finish, and there's ongoing training around this as well. So and that will also be part of the training. So Liam, I'm going to hand over to yourself now, and this is around Liam's going to talk to us about achieving enterprise excellence through high performance leadership and cultural transformation. Liam is the vice chairman of Teneo, and you probably all have seen him also on the Sunday game last night. So Liam, I'm going to hand over to yourself.
Thanks, Anne, and delighted to be on the call, but most importantly of all, I'm thrilled to be obviously with Teneo and be selected to roll out the MÓR Excellence Programme in association with IBEC and the Irish Medtech Skillnet team. So maybe just to start, I'd like to maybe just introduce you a little bit to Teneo and the overall firm overview. So Anne, you can fly on there to the next slide down, please, if that's okay. Go another one. So we're a global CEO advisory firm. Obviously, we have a big presence in Ireland as well, but we've offices right across the world. So I suppose there's a good understanding of what challenges companies are facing, as you said, in the new world that we now experience ourselves in. So we have over 1,500 people, and we advise in excess of 1,200 clients. But really, what I want to share with you today is more a background of, you know, the performance consulting. So even if I look at my own background, I was 18 years with Bank of Ireland. Started off in the life and pensions business and was the CEO of the Munster region in my last role. Loved every minute of it, I have to say. So I gave 18 years in the banking sector, and prior to that I gave 10 years with Procter & Gamble, a multinational company in Nina, where I started off on a line operator and finished up as the planning buying manager when I left to join the bank in 2002. So I suppose I have a long experience of working in business, and I had the pleasure, I suppose, of managing sports teams along the way. So look, I really suppose my passion is people and performance, and that's the reason why I decided to join Teneo and set up what we now call Teneo Performance Consulting. So I might just give you a little bit of background on that, and so we can just fly on to maybe the next slide. So really our mission really is just to partner with senior leaders and their teams to look at that sustained performance. So really back very much in line with, I mean, when I first met Cathal and I went through the MÓR program and looked at it, you know, there was a lot of head nodding going on, because I really can connect when you talk about purpose, when you talk about high performance. You know, that really is a place where we love and trying to empower high performance behaviours. I'm very fortunate to have, you know, there's a team of 9 in total, but the team that would be supporting this particular rollout will be myself. And I notice there's people from Stryker on the call. So Jane Mitchell, I'm sure, will be known to some of those. Jane has a long distinguished career in Stryker and in Boston Scientific over 2 decades. Really, I suppose, a long in HR, in leadership development, in talent development, and again brings great levels of expertise. So it's a really good understanding of the sectors as well. And Brendan is over 13 years in high performance. He's a business owner. He was previously teaching for 8 years and really has a passion for people and performance, and spends a lot of time now working as a performance coach himself. So that's the team that we will be supporting this program with. Maybe just then to give you a flavour of the organisation, of how we structure ourselves. There's 3 main buckets that we work with, and I'm going to give you some examples of the clients and also maybe some specific client examples as well. Obviously, culture and change transformation, you know, look, it's well covered, you know, in terms of the importance of being able to deal with change and getting ahead of change, and being comfortable in the whole change environment, because ultimately if you're standing still in business, you're falling behind. So it's really important that you can really improve the rate at which you improve at, and obviously having the right culture. You know, ultimately, if we get the right behaviours right throughout the organisation, from top down in leadership right through to bottom up from all the operators, you know, that's a really good environment. So we spend a lot of emphasis on culture and change transformation. Obviously, ensuring that our structurally we're set up to succeed is really important. So really ensuring that we're designed to implement a strategy and execute a strategy, because if you get the, I always say, some people say that culture is strategy, but I would be able to view that culture is strategy. You've got to have the 2 of them working hand in hand and in tandem. And, you know, I guess I've always believed that if you get the right leadership and the right leadership behaviours, most teams will get to a really strong performance level. So we place a huge emphasis on working with leadership teams. And obviously you'll see that's a core part of how we roll out this programme, and in getting leadership on board at the very early stage and in its infancy, I guess, to ensure that we drive the right behaviours. So that's our practice in the main. Maybe just to give you some examples of some of the client base that we have. So we have a very broad base across a number of different sectors that you can see there. And as I said, we really value our clients, and any client that we work with, really from our perspective in performance consulting, we're only interested in one thing, and that's making impact and shifting the dial. And again, I'm going to take you through some of the programs that we've run. So the first one I'm going to talk through is Pfizer Ringaskiddy. So originally this came and I made a contact with some of the senior leadership team down there. They had a challenge around their TIR, so they were a bit concerned around the safety behaviours. They probably were more systems driven than actually behaviours led. So we started running safety workshops with a cross section of the site, and really we went after the behaviours and the culture. We shared with them what best in class organizations do in terms of high performance. We really zoned in on the importance of high performance individuals and their role that they play in high performing teams in business and in sport, and really tapping into that purpose piece. Pfizer have a very strong purpose of breakthrough that saves patients' lives, but every bit as important is the importance of getting everybody home safe and sound in the evening. So really trying to tap into that that on-site purpose of making sure everybody comes in the gates and gets to go home safe and sound. So, when we went after the behaviours, we've seen a dramatic increase and their TAR reduced by 83%. So we're absolutely delighted with the outcome of the programme. And it just goes to show you the impact of that culture and behaviours can have on any result you're looking to impact. And since then, we've gone and rolled out a Trust and Empower programme. So one of their key pillars is people, not surprisingly. And we've delivered a Trust and Empower programme to all of their employees right across the site. And it's really trying to connect the individual's personal purpose, which is why they do what they do, to the company purpose of breakthrough that saves patients' lives. And as I said, it really does line up very well with what Cathal took us through earlier on. So as I said, we're obviously still in ongoing work with Pfizer and Skiddy. The next one I'm going to talk to is probably a little bit closer to the Medtech side, and I know Pádraig Broderick is on the call. We've worked with Pádraig now for over 12 months. We spent a lot of time last year at the start of the year working with their leadership team to ensure we get the optimum performance. Look, I would say that most leadership teams had spent very little time together. COVID had probably drove more individual at interaction more so than really tapping into the power of the collective. So we developed a program that really focused on, I think Adrian mentioned the importance in her slides around strong leadership. So we really focused on leadership, and we looked at it through 3 lenses. Day one was all around the winning self. So individually, how you show up as a leader and the impact that you have every time you walk into a room and every time, I suppose, you're around your peers. So day 2 was all around winning team and how that leadership team operates to ensure that they're set up and structured and engaged to really tap into the power of a collective that they can achieve as a leadership team. And finally, then on day 3, we looked at the winning organisation. So how do we ensure that transitions optical, I suppose, look at you're very much part of the SLR Luxottica operation now, and ensuring that transitions shines bright and that their overall strategy and vision for growth within transitions within that overall business model. And as I said, the results is there for Pádraig can obviously talk to anyone in terms of where they're going, but they're gone on a really exciting journey. They're in a really good place, and the growth trajectory for the company is very, very good. So, again, it really shows the importance of leadership coming together individually, collectively, and everybody having that pride in their overall company jersey that can flow right down throughout the organisation. And the final one, again, I'm going to talk about is Aer Lingus. On the basis that, again, that sector was very challenged throughout COVID. Obviously, all their planes were grounded, so it was a really difficult time. So coming out of the back of COVID and the appointment of a new CEO, they were really keen to really revert back to understand what their purpose, what their vision, what their mission and what their values was. So we've done extensive work with them, trying to tap into their purpose. And again, they wanted to ensure that they connected with their employees, they want, most of all, but they also wanted to ensure that they were connecting with the customers and really try and tap into why people do what they do with Aer Lingus. You'll have seen a good brand campaign built on the back of it. As I said, we worked with their leadership teams, we worked with their executive team, and we also worked with a diagonal split right throughout the organisation to get input into that. And as I said, it really is trying to tap into how you bring everybody on board with any programs that you're looking to run. But, we would always say that, having that baseline of purpose, vision, mission and values is what gives you, and again, it's very clear from Cahill's circle there that it is starting with why you do what you do, because then the processes and the performance comes later. And as I said, it's been successfully launched and they're really, really happy with that rollout. And we continue to work with them on their overall organizational health assessment and work going forward, and that's an ongoing process. So hopefully that gives people a flavour of what we do in Teneo, and they were just 3 examples. And I think it's really important, and I think that, again, this has probably been well covered, but you got to be able to weather the storm, because you got to try and be, you've got to always try and be ahead of the curve, because if you're standing still, ultimately you're falling behind. So I think the MÓR Excellence Programme is an opportunity to really allow you to revisit exactly why you do what you do and how you can ensure you're really fit for the future and you continue to flourish in the ongoing environment. So I think there's just one more slide and that I'd like to cover. So if I look at it, we've got the date of the 23rd. I suppose the ask, really, if I was to have an ask, it would be lovely to have really strong attendance on the 23rd. It's a 4-hour session that we'll run in the High Performance Centre. I think the key thing about it is, like, we'll give you the framework introduction, just to give you maybe a brief synopsis of what the day would look like from 9 to 1. We give you the framework introduction at the start, then we talk about what your challenges are in your particular or workplaces, so we get a sense of where you feel that you're challenged, and then we'll take you through the 5 Ps that we've discussed. So now that we know what your as-is state is, then we'll talk you through the 5 Ps, and then we'll be looking at I suppose really what is a 3-step process, but ultimately the first 2 steps are the key one, with step 1 being getting your leaders introduced and fully on board with the overall MÓR Excellence program. That would be step 1. And step 2 then would be to really bring the champions in, the people that are going to roll it out across your organisation. And again, we're very much of the view that this is an ongoing iterative process. So there would be a step 3, which would be that ongoing process where we continue to look to grow and develop the MÓR Excellence program going forward. But that's how I see the program rolling out. But as I said, we'd love to have a room full of people that would like to hear more, because it's also going to be a very interactive session where we work together to ensure that we build the best possible product to ensure that your company continues to flourish through your people going forward. So I'll hand it back to Anne.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you very much. I'd like to open it up to any questions that people may have now, or if you want to follow up with us later at the Irish Medtech Skillnet. But I'm happy to take people to come on camera, or to even just ask questions if you want to switch on your microphones. And I can, it's just, we're sharing this with people that weren't able to make today. We had huge amount of interest. So if anyone would like to ask any questions on it, please raise your hand or come on.
Yeah, or there's also the chat facility as well, and if people want
to
type
is
any question.
Yeah. Hi, Pádraig.
Hi, Anne. Yeah, I know it looks amazing. Well done to everyone putting this together. It looks really, really impressive. I think the whole thing is really coming at a critical time, and it'll surely help. I was just wondering, in terms of, is there a guideline in terms of a time frame around this? Is there a cycle events? How does it run? How does it work? Is it at the pace of the company, or what's the guideline or the thinking around that?
Cathal, can I hand over to yourself on that first, and then go to Liam after that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Pádraig, and the reason I say it's a great question, I think the typical response that most people would be given is that you treat it like nearly a program or a project that's got a 2 or 3 year cycle, and these are the results that you'd expect to get. What's different about this, it really all comes down to yourselves and the leaders in any company. Is first of all is to get bought into the thinking behind it and the essence of it, and then it's just about making it happen. But I would see this as if it's embraced correctly, it's an endless journey. It's about setting you up for success. As Liam finished off there, it's about getting cultures and systems developed that will allow you to flourish well into the future. It's something that will give you sustainable results year on year over year. It's not just something that it's like a project. We'll go in and we'll do a transformation here, and these are the results that you get. That was what we used to do in the past, and it was brilliant. You get the results and you clap yourselves in the back, but the challenge is, how do you get them every year on a continuous basis? And the only way you can do that really is to do the hard work. The hard work here is about changing the behaviors, changing the thinking, and putting systems and cultures in place that really drive performance on an ongoing basis, and bringing everybody into the organization.
Thanks, Cathal. Liam, could I hand over to you just to kind of, I suppose, on the back of what Cathal is after saying, just, from your experience within companies?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a really good question, and great to see you again, Pádraig. I think it's important you understand your as is, because I think the beauty of this program is that we want to pick you up wherever you find yourself right now. And some companies will be at different levels, and some companies will have, under the 5 Ps, you might have different needs or different opportunities. And I think once you understand your as is, you build a plan. Obviously, it's key that you get your leaders on board first. Once you've your leaders on board, you got to select the right champions. You got to select the people that will really win the hearts and minds of the people right throughout the organization. So I'd see leadership coming on board as critical, and I would equally see the importance of picking the right champions that will really champion this down on the ground with your people is critical. And then I think you'll start to see the incremental gains. My experience is that when you really go after behaviors and really get a bit of momentum in, I think there's incremental gains that can be gained quite quickly. So you get this little bit of a spike, and then it's about that iteration and that ongoing iteration to ensure that you make sure you've got to wrap it in as part of BAU. Because if it sits in its own and it seems as something that sits outside of your normal day-to-day business, you're in trouble. You got to bring it in, make it part of BAU, get people excited about it, and I think you'd start to see the gains. But certainly, you know, you would like to see, you know, I mean, you got to make sure that you're measuring so that you can see your level of progress as you go forward, because people play different when you keep the score. And I think it's very much about getting the leaders on, getting the champions on, and then building your incremental gains. But I think there's definitely loads to go for, and there should be good early gains on it. I mean, certainly what I've seen, if you take the Pfizer example, when you really get people tapped in and you really get the behaviours being shown right throughout an organisation, you can start to see the results coming through really quickly.
Perfect. Thanks, Cathal. Thanks, Liam. Yeah, great answer. Yeah, no, love the look at the program. So really excited about hearing more maybe on the day. And I think, yeah, I'd encourage everyone to go to that 4 hour, because, you know, this is really something exciting, and I think every organisation can benefit from it. So I think the momentum, the quick wins that you mentioned, Liam, is key to keep the momentum going. I think, Cathal, you're right. You know, we've done programs, we've started them and we finished them by a date, and then often or sometimes they lose momentum in the middle. So it's, I think, keeping that energy going, keeping the excitement. So well done, everyone, and looking forward to hearing more.
Thanks, Pádraig. And as well as that, it's that continuous measurement that you can actually do with the tool as well, that backs it all up, you know. So all of the aspects are in place really around this now to be able to start that. And I think going back to what Liam has said there, different companies are going to be at different places and are going to have different parts of operational excellence in place. But I really think that this program can help you to be able to back up a lot of that and to be able to deliver on it. And I do think, going on what Cathal has said as well, that it's really important. And Adrian, if you'd like to come in on this as well, it's that transformation of your organization. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but so I suppose that the answer in a certain extent is how long is a piece of string. But at the same time, there is a very much, you know, a set of ways now that you can work with ourselves and with Teneo to be able to manage that according to your own organisation. So we have a question here from Michael Devaney. So in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, will productivity improvement be a key measure, and how will it be measured? So first of all, Michael, one of the ways that it'll be measured will be actually using the MÓR Transform tool. So efficiency and effectiveness will be measured, and you should be able to see your progress. And I can pass over to Liam around how this has been done with the likes of the Pfizers, for example. And I think we have a lot of examples of that.
Yeah, and again, it is about, you know, what exactly you're trying to measure, what behaviors you're going after and how you measure them. So like in most of these, you know, you mentioned process a lot, because, you know, generally what we find is that if you get the right in-process measures, you know, the overall outcome that you're looking for. So it's not one thing, it can be a handful of things. But I think, you know, really working out and connecting with the organization to see exactly where they're trying to get to under the particular heading, and what we need to measure that ensures we're shifting the needle in the right direction. Because if you know, I always say, if you get the process right, generally the outcome measure looks after itself. So, you know, it really is about driving the right behaviors, tracking to see how that's going, and measuring and monitoring, and then adjusting. That's why I say with the iteration, you know, I think hopefully there'll be an opportunity as well to learn from others, because, you know, I don't expect that, you know, anyone will be on their own on this journey. So people will be at different stages on the journey, and having that collaboration across other companies, I think it'll be really important to ensure that we're all moving into one direction, and maybe some solutions might exist in other parts. But I think once we're clear on what we're looking for, we just measure it, and we ensure that the actions and behaviors that we're driving are giving us the desired outputs that we're looking for.
And Damien Rosney has raised their hand. Damien, have you a question?
I do, Thanks, Anne. Yeah, just a question for Liam. Liam, you spoke earlier just in relation to the strategy and the culture kind of going hand in hand. Could you just maybe talk about what you've seen in terms of, say, companies transforming, implementing their cultures? Because it can be a hard thing to measure, and it can be a hard thing to define in terms of kind of what the culture in the company is. Can you just talk to us a little bit about kind of in your experience what you've seen in terms of companies kind of transforming or implementing their culture?
Yeah, well, probably best even to go back to my own Bank of Ireland, role when I was in there, Damien, because it's a great question. But I mean, when I started at Bank of Ireland, our employee engagement score was 34, and we were the number 2 bank in the region. AIB were well ahead. So my strategy was to try and become the preeminent bank of choice within Munster. But I knew in order to do that, I had to drive the right culture and the right behaviours. So we put a lot of work into how we were going to shift the culture. And there was 26 clusters. So I had 26 champions, and obviously I had my leadership team. So I had 10 of my leadership team, and I had 26 champions across the board. And we shifted the employee engagement score from 34 to 71 in less than 2 years. So we transformed how people felt coming into work in Bank of Ireland and Munster. And on the back of that, we exceeded $1 billion in lending for the first time in 12 years. In 2018. So that was a significant milestone for us. And there was 100 customers who up and walked out of their current bank and walked into us, and they would be all of a high net value, and they would be seen as gold customers for us. So if people are going to move, they're only going to move if you've got great people and a great culture, and because there's not a lot of difference in the proposition and pricing. So I suppose I've seen firsthand, and I've been part of firsthand, and really that's part of the work that I do now. Is all of my work, whether it's cross sporting teams or whether it's cross business teams, the first place I get is, generally you can get your strategy very, very quickly. But if you can build your strategy on top of a really sound culture, and you're clear on what you expect of people and how they show up for you every day, it can make a huge difference. So I think you can't have one without the other, or you definitely won't excel in one without the other. So that's why I say, if you get the right culture and the right strategy, I think that's where you're on a really, really strong growth trajectory. And back to what I said to Pádraig earlier on, having those quick wins and getting a bit of early momentum, all of a sudden people says, geez, I'm jumping on here. I like where this is going. I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thanks a million, Liam, for the insight. Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Damien. And just to say, as Adrian has shared there as well, we will be sharing the slides. We'll be sharing this recording as well, and very happy for anyone to reach out to any of us if you have questions, and we'll follow up with you. And come back to us around the 23rd, before the 23rd, obviously. From today, you can book on to the program on the 23rd through the Irish Medtech Skillnet. But before we finish up today, if there aren't any more questions, I'd really like to acknowledge everyone that's on screen here today. It has been very much a collaborative group pulling this together in a short space of time, but the work that has gone into actually developing this overall framework has been over a number of years, and has been very much facilitated through the Advanced Manufacturing Working Group by Adrian, and also as well as Cathal with, as I've mentioned already, Mike Farrell, Colm Shields, Brendan Shepherd, and a number of other organisations as well within that Advanced Manufacturing Working Group. It's been great to give that kind of guidance of what industry actually want. And then it enabled us in the Irish Medtech Skillnet to be in a position to put out a tender looking for what we needed. And we were very, very fortunate to get Teneo responding to our tender, and that as a result, we're all here today. So I really wanted to acknowledge that, but I also wanted to acknowledge one woman that has kept us all in line is Elaine Bradley Ryan from Ideation Marketing, who has supported us through this whole event as well here today and this webinar, and has kept us, as I said to her, between the hedges. So look, delighted to have done this today. But if there are any other questions or any feedback that you'd like to get, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anne.
Thanks very much. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.